What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Mid-Level Media channel, your hub for everything physical media and entertainment. I am Ken. Today, guys, I am so excited because I get to talk about two releases that were probably my most anticipated 4K releases of 2024 so far. And yes, guys, that's with all the James Cameron hoopla that we just got, all those releases that came out. I was excited for those too, but I was very excited for both of these premium box set editions from Second Sight Films of Green Room and Possessor. Look at these beautiful box set releases right here. We're going to do full unboxings of both of these guys here in a second. I'm going to give you the full tour over there at the unboxing video. Then we're going to talk about the movies themselves because I really like these movies when they first came out, when I first watched them, but I fell in love with them even more on these rewatches. So yeah, just finished both of these. I dove into all the special features. I even read a little bit of the booklets in here as well. So I tried to dig into as much of these releases as I possibly could, because like I said, I was waiting for these. I was anticipating these. I was chomping at the bit to talk about both of these releases, guys. So yeah, Green Room and Possessor. We're going to dig into them here in a second. But before I do that, guys, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. We talk about physical media on this channel, Blu-rays, 4Ks, owning the movies that you love, all that stuff there behind me every single day. So if you like that kind of thing, hit that subscribe button and also, like the video and then comment down below, guys, how do you feel about Green Room? Do you enjoy this movie? This is an A24 movie, came out in 2015, one of Anton Yelchin's last big performances on screen. He would tragically pass away the year after in 2016. So yeah, definitely significant for that as well. But yeah, what do you think of Green Room? What do you think of Brandon Cronenberg's Possessor? Yes, this is David Cronenberg's son now doing some really extreme sci-fi body horror movies just like his dad. What do you think of this movie? Let me know in that comment section below. All right, guys, so before we start digging into each release, and I don't want this video to go forever, so I'm going to try to breeze over this stuff as quickly as I possibly can. Let's get into the meat of it, guys. I know you guys want to see these unboxed. You want to see what's inside these big, chunky box editions. So before we talk about the movies and the transfers and all that good stuff, let's head to the unboxing table and unbox these suckers, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about them. Let's do it. All right, so now that we did the unboxings, let's go ahead and talk about the movies and the transfers and the special features themselves. So let's start with Green Room. Like I said, this is a movie that came out in 2015, starring Anton Yelchin, and is directed by a guy named Jeremy Saulnier. And I am not too familiar with any of his other movies. I know he did a movie called Blue Ruins, but I have not seen that movie. And I think one movie before that they did talk about in the special features, but I can't remember the name. I think it was like Mad Monster Party or Murder Party or something like that. So, you know, he's a director that's been directing since the early 2010s. And I would say that this one is probably his most well-known movie. I don't know if he's done a film after Green Room, but Green Room is a really, really cool movie that's kind of punk rock infused. It's about a punk rock band that goes to play a show at a kind of isolated club type bar setting in Oregon. It's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And they go in there and they play, and all of a sudden they realize that they're kind of surrounded by some alt-right neo-Nazi type groups. And then they accidentally walk into a room where somebody gets murdered, and then they're held hostage in this green room. That's what they call the rooms that the bands wait in before they perform. The green room, which is, you know, how this movie got its title. They're held hostage in that room, and they have to find a way out. They have to fight their way out through all of these Nazi forces that are trying to oppose them and keep them inside. And ultimately, they're trying to figure out a way to kill them. You have Patrick Stewart in this movie, which the director talks about how it was such a great opportunity to get such a legendary actor to play the part of the head Nazi, the head neo-Nazi in this movie. He's running this entire organization, and they really just dive into this subculture of neo-Nazism and also the, you know, punk rock subculture as well. It's the fusing of both of these like groups that couldn't be any more opposite than each other in this movie. And it's just freaking awesome. It goes into some very, very graphically violent directions. There's a lot of great moments in this movie. It's very tense. It's very thrilling all throughout the movie. And I liked it the first time I watched it. I think I watched it on Netflix for the first time. I never owned the A24 Blu-ray in my collection. I don't know why, because I did like the movie. I watched it on Netflix and I didn't feel like I needed to own it. And I never really saw it in the wild anywhere. But you know, I watched it this time, guys, and I just really appreciated this movie a lot more. There's some great style in this movie, some great stylistic choices by the director, and I definitely need to check out his other movie for sure. But yeah, and Anton Yelchin, dude, he was just such a talent, and it's such a tragedy that we lost him so soon. He's great in this movie, as is the other cast. I don't know everybody's name off the top of my head. I know the girl from God, what was that show? That Arrested Development was the first show that I saw her on. She's been in some other movies, but she's in this movie playing a character that was supposed to be played by a guy, but the director, cast her because she auditioned for it. So that was actually cool. They cast a girl in what was supposed to be a guy role, and she does a great job in this movie as well. You got Imogen Poots in this film. She's been in a lot of lower level independent genre films in the past few years. I feel like she's very good in this movie. Everybody's really great in this movie, and everything just feels so realistic in this movie. The environments, the characters, just how everybody acts, like everything feels like nothing goes as it should. It doesn't go like a normal movie would. Like there's a lot of accidents. There's a lot of, shuffling around of people. They're doing the wrong things. They're unsure of what they're doing. They're not like either side doesn't know what they're doing, but they have to really try to perform these feats of heroism and villainism towards each other. And it's really sloppy, but it's also realistic, so it's cool to watch play out. But Green Room, absolutely fantastic movie. Let's talk about the 4K. So the 4K restoration, I believe, was supervised by the director, but the actual authoring of this 4K, the actual restoration, was done by the group Fidelity and Motion, which I believe Second Sight uses often to do their 4K upgrades. And look, guys, this is a spectacular 4K. I'm not often impressed by newer films in the 4K format. I'm more impressed by classic film restorations. This is a newer film that probably looks pretty good on Blu-ray, but I think they did a spectacular job on this 4K. And again, keep in mind, I have not seen the Blu-ray. I've only seen this movie on streaming, but I thought they did a great job with this restoration. Everything just looks so natural. They really, the cinematography in this movie, the color aesthetic, there's a lot of greens, there's a lot of pukish yellows in the film that just kind of goes into the environments and where they're at and the lighting choices that they chose to do in the movie. But everything just looks so good. But one thing I do feel like I need to comment about, because I heard some people complaining about the high tension 4K in this very similar issue. And this movie is very dark. And when you apply that HDR, it does, it brings out those colors. But what HDR also does is it kind of darkens things a little bit. It looks like it's putting a kind of tint over the actual film itself. And that's just because it's restoring the movie back to its natural state. It's really bringing it back to its roots and how it was filmed and how it was shot. And what Blu-ray does is it kind of brightens things up and brings those colors out and makes them a little bit more vibrant, where 4K kind of reduces it back. And to some people, I think that's kind of a negative, and they don't like how dark the 4K format can look at times. I've heard that complaint on a number of movies, and this movie, it's set in Oregon, guys. It's rainy outside, it's very dark, it's very gloomy, but the grass, the trees, the setting outside all looks great in 4K. Everything's perfectly colored, everything looks perfectly natural, but it is very dark. And when you're inside that club setting, the bar setting, the corridors, the hallways, all that stuff looks very dark. And it is, I don't want to say it's tough to see, because I don't feel like I had a problem seeing in this movie at all, but I can see some people having some issues with how dark this movie is on 4K. I can see people saying, I like my Blu-ray better, because Blu-ray, what it does, guys, is it's brighter, the colors are just brighter, and that's just what Blu-ray does. 4K doesn't do that. It kind of brings it back to the natural state. So, I enjoyed it. I thought it looked great. I thought it was contrasted perfectly, looked extremely natural. Like, I felt like that's how it would look if I was inside that club. So it kind of led to a more immersive experience for me. But I thought, everything was handled great with this 4K. I thought Second Sight and Fidelity and Motion did a great job with the restoration. And, all the skin tones and everything just looked great. There was a lot of great detail there. And I can't say enough good things about the 4K. It looked excellent for Green Room. But let's move into the special features. There's some great special features on this as well. Well, I guess I should talk about the audio. You got the DTS Master Audio 5.1. I don't believe there was any kind of upgrade on the audio here. So, everything sounds great, guys. You got several moments where the band's playing and stuff, and all that stuff sounds fantastic with the audio. So I didn't really have an issue with the audio here. But let's talk about these special features, you guys, because there's actually some really great special features. There's a new audio commentary by Rena Cervetes and Prince Jackson, and there's also an audio commentary with the writer and director Jeremy Saulnier, and I believe that's probably an archival commentary that was probably present on that A24 Blu-ray, I imagine. But there's a bunch of new interviews here and one visual essay. There's an interview with the director, guys, and Jeremy Saulnier, and it's called Going Hardcore. And it's about 30 minutes long, and this is a great interview. The director's kind of, retrospectively looking back on his career and what led him to Green Room, talking about the filmmaking process, talking about working with all the actors, and talking about some of the struggles that kind of went into making this movie. And then the last like 3 minutes of this interview will really just rip your heart out, because the director completely breaks down over Anton Yelchin. You could tell how much that actor meant to him, and it's really beautiful, but it's also kind of heartbreaking at the same time. So that was a great interview with the director. You got other interviews, one with the actor Calum Turner, one with the composers Brooke and Will Blair, which just has a great score. You have a interview with production designer Ryan Warren Smith, which was a great interview talking about how they constructed the stages of this movie and how they filmed and how they lit the scenes and all that stuff. That's a really great interview. And then you got a visual essay here, Nazi Punks Fuck Off is what it's called, by Thomas Caldwell. And then you got an archive featurette here, Into the Pit, Making Green Room, which I think was present back on that A24 Blu-ray release. So just a great release overall, guys. I already did the unboxing, but I absolutely love this Green Room release right here in the presentation. But that's Green Room. Let's go ahead and jump into Possessor on 4K, directed by Brandon Cronenberg. So I watched this one on Hulu back in 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. I think this came out. And I love this movie. And to be completely honest, this is 4 years later that I'm watching it again. I knew I loved this movie, really liked it a lot, but I couldn't remember hardly anything about it. It's got Andrea Rosberger in it, I think is how you pronounce her name, Ross Burr. Maybe is how you pronounce it. Christopher Abbott's in this movie. You got Jennifer Jason Leigh in this film. Sean Bean is in this movie for not very long. It's a very brief kind of segment that he's in, but he is in the movie. So the movie's actually got a really good cast, and of course directed by Brandon Cronenberg, the son of David Cronenberg. So I've said this before, but I think Brandon Cronenberg is one of the best up-and-coming horror director or genre directing talents that I have seen. I love this movie now, and I loved Infinity Pool. I love that fusing of sci-fi and horror together, and I just think that Brandon Cronenberg does it so perfectly. Like, we've seen it done very well in the past. You know, with movies like Ex Machina, I think that movie is a perfect blend of horror and sci-fi. But this takes it to the next level, just really embracing the horror, the body horror in particular in the movie Possessor. And there's a lot of great gory moments in here as well, kind of fusing that with more science fiction elements. And it's just a really cool movie from start to finish. It's about Andrea Rossburl's character. And she is basically a hitman. She's a hitman working for this secret organization that puts implants in people's heads. And basically what she does is she puts this little like helmet on, and she is her consciousness is transported into their target's head, and she can embody this person, basically possess this person to carry out these hits on some higher level people. So it's this organization that's being paid by very rich people that want other people dead. And she is basically the hitman that goes into other people's bodies to possess them to accomplish these hits. But the way that it is constructed is very realistic. Like, it is sci-fi, but like it's done so in a way that's more realistic sci-fi. Like, you could actually see people being able to carry this stuff out in this way. And I just think it's super well done. So I love Possessor, and it goes into some extremely dark directions with her kind of losing her sense of self and her identity. And she's just kind of almost morphing into the person that she's possessing. And there's a lot of weird, trippy sequences in this movie that are just shot extremely well and are just so cool, like visually on the screen, which will lead me into the 4K restoration of this movie. But, you know, my final thoughts on the movie itself, I love it. I don't want to say too much about it because I think it's best you go into this movie not knowing a lot, because the movie has a lot of really trippy twists and turns, and I think it's a really awesome film. So definitely check it out for sure, even if you don't get this release right here. But getting into the 4K, guys, it was also done by Fidelity and Motion, and I believe it was also supervised, sorry guys, by the director, or approved by the director, Brandon Cronenberg. It's got Dolby Vision, it's got HDR, and I believe Green Room also has Dolby Vision and HDR as well. I don't know if I mentioned that, but and I thought this was a great 4K. Like, this movie visually is just stunning. There's so many great colors just all throughout this movie. So many stunning sequences of cinematography, and I knew this movie was gonna be made for 4K. But the thing is I got it in the player back there. I did buy this 4K from Wellgo USA right before this was announced. This dropped to 16 bucks. It had been like 30 or 35 for the longest time. It dropped to $16. I pulled the trigger, and then I knew why it was dropped to 16, because this was being made and they put this out. But I love this movie so much, like I could not get this. And to be honest, I'd never even watched this 4K, so I can't really speak to the differences between the two. But, you know, getting into it, you know, from a special features perspective, there are so many more special features on this release than there is the Wellgo release. Now, they did port over some of the Wellgo stuff to this release right here, but, you know, speaking like how they compare as far as the 4Ks, I'm sure that this one looks pretty good as well. But this is probably going to be the definitive way to watch this movie, because it was done by the masters of 4K restoration, Fidelity and Motion, and also supervised by the director himself. And I don't believe that this 4K was supervised by the director himself. So this is probably going to be the most natural way, the best way that you can watch this movie for sure on 4K is with the Second Sight 4K release. So yeah, I absolutely love this 4K. I thought it looked absolutely incredible, magnificent. There's so many stunning sequences of red and orange and yellow, and And man, they just have some great makeup effects, some great effects, to some great gore effects, some great body horror effects as well. Everything about this movie is just so well done. Like, you have to watch it. It's so good. But in 4K, it just looks so much cleaner and so much better than I remember it looking when I watched it on streaming. So, but, you know, sound-wise, guys, you have the DTS HD Master Audio 5.1, and it sounded great. I'm just listening to this on a sound bar that kind of simulates that 5.1, that Dolby Atmos. But I thought it sounded great. The score in this movie is like this super dark and atmospheric, like synth kind of score. And there's a lot of bass, and it really just kind of reverberates and rumbles and vibrates your walls while you're listening to it. But it sounds absolutely fantastic. I love the score in this movie. But getting into the special features, guys, same with Green Room. This has a ton of great special features. You got a new audio commentary with the director and producer Rob Cottrell, Karim Hussein, and special effects artist Dan Martin, who did a great job on this movie, by the way. But I think that's the first ever audio commentary with Possessor, because I don't think you got one on this Well Go release right here. And I believe this might be the first time Brandon Cronenberg's actually done extensive interviews and commentaries on this movie since he made it. So you also have a new interview with Brandon Cronenberg, which is about 20 minutes. I didn't think this interview with the director was as strong as the director of Green Room, but it's still a really good look on the making of this movie from the perspective of the director, and it kind of gets inside his psyche and his thought process that went into making this movie. It was an interesting story about his first movie, Antiviral, and how there was an 8-year gap between that movie and this movie, and how it took so long to get this movie actually made. So I thought that was a pretty interesting story. The weird thing about that interview is you can tell like Brandon Cronenberg's probably like super artsy fartsy. He's doing the interview, and this could have been Second Sight's decision, I don't know, but he's doing the interview like in front of a screen. And his movie is projecting on him and the screen behind him as he's talking. So I thought that was a really kind of odd artistic decision for this sit down or stand up interview. I think he's standing up in the interview. Still a really good interview. I did enjoy it. Inside the Machine, a new interview with Karim Hussein. Feel the Real, a new interview with Rob Cottrell. And Disassociating from Mind and Body, Zoe Rose Smith on Possessor. So that's a video essay as well. So yeah, you get 3 interviews on this one, new interviews, and then you also get that video essay, and then you get all the archival, stuff, guys. You get, which I'm pretty sure includes a making of feature and also the effects of Possessor. You also get the short film, Please Speak Continuously and Describe Your Experiences as They Come to You, which is the short film that he made in the time between his first film and the film Possessor, which he talks about in his interview. So really cool stuff. You get deleted scenes and stuff in here, but I think all that stuff is on the Well Go release as well. But some really good special features here, guys. And these are lengthy special features. I think Green Room had like an hour and a half to 2 hours of special features, and this one has, about an hour and a half of features as well. So a lot of great stuff in both of these releases. To be honest, like, I can't not recommend both of these. I think these are both great movies, and I think these are both great releases with some great features, and they look great on 4K. So if you can still get your hands on these, I will link the Second Sight website down below. I will also link places like Diabolic and Orbit, wherever I find these special box set editions. Of course, you don't have to get the chunky boxes. You can get the standard editions as well. I think there's also a Blu-ray option. If you want to go Blu-ray, those will still have the special features and all that kind of stuff. Just keep in mind that those are not region free. They would be region B. So if you don't have a region free player, you wouldn't be able to play those. But on 4K, you can play them anywhere. And I think it should be noted that all the special features are on the 4K, so you don't have to switch discs to the Blu-ray to play the special features. So there you go, guys. That is my very lengthy review of both of these Second Sight premium editions on 4K of Possessor and Green Room. Hope you enjoyed it. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Turn on those bell notifications for all future videos and reviews, and follow me on all of my social media accounts. Those links are down below in the description, and we'll see you next time.